The rain hit the pavement like falling nails, sharp and cold. Elijah stood beneath the grand glass awning of the city's most luxurious mall, his arms wrapped around his thin frame, soaked hoodie clinging to his skin. At just 15, he'd already learned how to read danger in people's eyes. And today, every look screamed the same thing. You don't belong here. You're scaring the customers, boy. Get out of here. The white security guard shoved him hard in the chest. Elijah stumbled backward, his heel catching the slick curb. He hit the ground with a grunt, knees scraping against the concrete. A splash of muddy rainwater soaked his torn jeans. He didn't cry, didn't scream. He just looked up, face blank, as a crowd of finely dressed shoppers slowed their steps to sneer at him. "Oh, great," muttered Martha Allridge, clutching her designer purse tighter. "Another street rat. These future criminals are everywhere." Nobody offered help. Not a single glance of concern. Just cold avoidance and clutched wallets. Elijah pushed himself up slowly, wiping blood from his leg with the back of his hand. His stomach growled, but hunger was normal. What wasn't normal was what happened next. A sudden gasp rippled through the air. A woman, white, blonde, pregnant, maybe in her 30s, stumbled out from the mall's revolving doors. Her face twisted in pain as she clutched her stomach. She tried to steady herself against a pillar, but her heels slipped on the wet tile. Her body crashed to the marble floor with a sickening thud, her head hitting hard. Blood began to spill beneath her golden hair. No one noticed. They were too busy watching Elijah. He noticed. Without hesitation, Elijah ran forward. His bare feet slapped against the wet floor as he slid beside her. Her lips were turning pale, her breathing shallow. He pulled off his soaked hoodie and pressed it gently against the wound on her head, steady hands moving like he'd done it 100 times before. "Ma'am," he whispered, "stay with me. You're gonna be okay." Then louder, "Help! Somebody help her! She's bleeding!" Heads finally turned. The shoppers looked over, only to see a shirtless black boy crouched over a bloodied white woman. Gasps echoed. Phones came out. Accusations came faster than reason. "Oh my God! He's hurting her!" "That kid attacked her." Elijah didn't move, didn't run. He just looked up at the crowd, calm, steady, and holding pressure on her wound. While they panicked, he stayed focused. And in that moment, the story of a hero began, by being called a criminal. The cuffs dug into his wrists before he even understood what was happening. "On the ground! Hands where I can see them!" barked the second security guard as he rushed over. Elijah barely got out. "I was helping," before his face was pressed into the cold marble. "You assaulted her, didn't you?" the first guard growled, twisting his arm tighter. "You think this is some game? Trying to rob a pregnant woman?" The crowd gathered in a tight circle, some filming, others whispering. A man in a suit leaned toward his wife. "They're getting bolder every year. No respect for life. No fear. She should have stayed away from this area. It's not safe anymore," another woman added, not even looking at Elijah, just judging, recording, nodding. Martha Allridge stepped forward, her red lipstick sharp against her pale skin. "I knew he was trouble the second I saw him. This is what happens when they let people like that just wander around." Elijah stayed silent. He wasn't surprised by the words. What stunned him more was how quickly everyone believed them. Not one person had seen him pull his hoodie off to help her. Not one had noticed his calm hands or the care in his voice. They saw only what they wanted to see, a black boy beside a hurt white woman. And that was enough. He tried to speak again. She was— "Shut it," the guard snapped. "We've got cameras. We'll see what you did." But Elijah knew better. Cameras didn't always catch the right moments. They caught shadows, angles, narratives, not truths. The woman was still unconscious, her dress soaked in rain and blood. A paramedic team rushed through the entrance, pushing people aside. One knelt next to her, checking her vitals. "Heavy blood loss, head trauma. She's pregnant. She's in labor," one of them shouted. Another paramedic looked over at Elijah, noticing something. "Hey, she's been positioned right. On her side, head elevated, wound compressed. Someone already did first aid." The crowd blinked. Martha scoffed. "He probably made it look that way to cover it up." The guard shoved Elijah again, harder this time. "Let's get you in the back. You're going to jail, punk." Phones were still filming. Comments were flying online. "Thug attacks, rich woman at mall." "This is what happens when we're too soft." Just another criminal in the making. Elijah was shoved into the back of a mall security van, the sirens from the arriving ambulance growing fainter as the doors slammed shut. Inside, he sat in silence. They never even asked for his name. Rebecca's eyelids fluttered open under the harsh white light of the emergency room. Her head throbbed, and every breath felt like a stone pressing against her ribs. Nurses moved around her, shouting medical terms she couldn't process. But her voice came out clear, weak, urgent. "Where's the boy? The one who helped me?" The nurse paused. "Ma'am, you were in an accident. Try not to speak." "No," she insisted, her voice trembling. "The black boy, he saved me. Where is he?" The nurse exchanged a glance with the doctor before murmuring, "I think security detained someone, ma'am. We don't know the full story yet." At the precinct across town, Elijah sat alone in an interrogation room. His wrists still burned from the cuffs, his clothes were soaked, and the chill from the station's air conditioning bit through his bones. A white officer sat across from him, arms crossed, not even trying to hide his judgment. "Look, kid, the mall has security footage, witnesses. The woman's in critical condition. You were caught hovering over her with your shirt off. This doesn't look good." Elijah lifted his eyes. Calm. "Director, I was helping her. She collapsed. She hit her head. I've seen it before." The officer leaned back in his chair, amused. "And let me guess, you're a doctor too?" "No," Elijah replied, without missing a beat. "But my mother was an obstetric nurse. She taught me what to do when someone faints. She taught me about labor and trauma. One of the babies was in distress. I could see it in the way she was breathing." The officer's smirk faded slightly, but he still scribbled notes, uninterested. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Rebecca clutched the IV in her arm and sat up slowly. "I need to speak to the police. That boy didn't hurt me. He helped me. He saved me." "Ma'am," the nurse said gently, "you're in premature labor. You need rest." But Rebecca's voice sharpened. "Get my lawyer. Now." A call was placed to Elliot Cross, a high-powered attorney known for representing high-profile business figures and celebrities. He was halfway through dinner at a downtown steakhouse when he answered. "Rebecca? Are you okay?" "I was attacked, but not by who they think. They've arrested the wrong person. I need you to go to the police station now. The boy they've got in custody saved me. I need you to make sure they don't destroy him. Elliot frowned. You're still recovering. Are you sure? Just go, Elliot. Please, don't let them ruin him. He hung up, tossed cash on the table, and headed straight for the station. Back in the holding room, Elijah sat still as the officer stepped out to take a call. Alone, he stared at the metal table in front of him, breathing slow and even. They thought they'd buried him already, but the truth was about to surface, and it would speak louder than all their lies. Elijah didn't flinch when the interrogation room door opened again. But this time, it wasn't the same officer. A tall, sharp-suited white man stepped in, coat still damp from the rain, expression unreadable. He set down a leather briefcase, adjusted his cufflinks, and looked directly at Elijah. "You must be Elijah," he said. Elijah nodded slowly. "And you are?" "Elliot Cross, your attorney, apparently." "I didn't call one." "You didn't have to. Rebecca Langford did." The name made Elijah sit upright. "Is she okay?" "She's alive, still in labor, but conscious. Her first words were about you." Elliot opened his briefcase and pulled out a notepad. "She says you saved her life. That true?" "I did what I could," Elijah replied. "My mom taught me basic medical response. She always said, if someone's hurt, you help. Doesn't matter who." Elliot studied the boy for a long second. "You said your mom was a nurse?" "She was, before she passed. She used to treat homeless women who didn't trust hospitals. I watched. I learned." Elliot leaned back, eyes narrowing. "They say you just happened to be there, that you attacked her. That's what the mall security told the press." "They're lying," Elijah said simply. "One of them pushed her." Elliot blinked. "You saw that?" "No," Elijah said quietly. "I felt it. The way she fell wasn't right. It wasn't a feint. It was a shove. Forward falls are natural. She went backward. That doesn't happen unless someone hits you." For a moment, Elliot said nothing. Then he rose to his feet and pulled out his phone. "I need to review the mall's CCTV footage. All angles. I'm filing a motion now." He turned at the door. "Don't say another word to anyone without me. Got it?" Elijah nodded. "I got it." Back at the hospital, Rebecca was barely holding together. Her contractions were close now, but her focus hadn't shifted. "He's just a kid," she whispered. "But he saved me, and I can't let them destroy him for being born black and poor." The nurses urged her to lie back, to breathe. But all she could think of was the moment she locked eyes with Elijah. The calm, steady look in the middle of chaos. In that look, she saw something she hadn't seen in years. Clarity. Purpose. Compassion that came without conditions. And now, while everyone else pushed a lie, that same boy sat in a holding cell, accused by the very people who had ignored her lying in a pool of blood. But that was about to change. Because Elijah wasn't just a homeless teen anymore. He had the truth on his side. And now, for the first time, someone powerful was listening. The conference room was packed. Muffled whispers and shifting feet filled the space as the security footage began to play on the large screen. The first clip showed Rebecca walking alone, her hand instinctively resting on her swollen belly. Minutes later, a man in a security uniform, the same guard who had shoved Elijah, appeared from behind the plants. His expression was tense, eyes darting around. The footage captured him stepping forward deliberately and pushing Rebecca hard against a decorative planter. Her body crashed backward onto the polished marble floor. A hush fell over the room as the clip repeated, frame by frame. Martha Aldridge sat rigid, her face drained of color. "This is doctored," she whispered fiercely. But the lawyer, Elliot Cross, leaned forward, tapping the screen. "Camera 7, timestamp 3:42. Notice his hesitation? Look again." The next clip showed a phone call minutes earlier. The guard's phone buzzed, and his gaze met Martha's across the mall's lobby. The call was brief, but chilling. Elliot held up a folder. "We have phone records proving several calls from Martha to this guard on the day of the incident." He spread bank statements across the table, revealing transactions labeled as security services, large sums transferred months before. Martha's hand trembled, and she looked to the floor. "I was desperate," she finally confessed. "I thought if Rebecca lost the baby, I could take control of the company." One of the detectives cleared his throat, eyes narrowing. "Attempted murder charges are being filed." Meanwhile, Elijah sat quietly beside Elliot, absorbing every detail. He had memorized faces, noticed their lies, and now the truth was unraveling piece by piece. As the footage ended, the room erupted in murmurs and shocked glances. Justice was no longer just a hope. It was imminent. The headlines flashed across every screen. "Black teen wrongfully accused becomes national hero. Billionaire's savior or suspect." The story swept through social media and news outlets alike, igniting fierce debates about race, justice, and privilege. Martha Aldridge was arrested that morning. Her expensive jewelry confiscated, her calm public facade shattered under the weight of mounting evidence. The security guard who had shoved Elijah was also taken into custody, his promises of a better job now replaced by cold charges. At the county jail, Elijah was brought to a small visiting room. Rebecca Langford, still pale but steady, was waiting. Tears filled her eyes as she reached across the table and took his hand. "You saved my life," she whispered, "and now I want to give you a future." Elijah swallowed hard, emotions swirling inside him like a storm. "I don't want charity. I want to make a difference, help others who don't have a voice." Rebecca smiled through her tears. "Then you will. I'm offering you a full scholarship to medical school. Emergency medicine, just like your mom wanted." The news spread quickly. Elijah Jones, once homeless and accused of a crime he didn't commit, was now a symbol of resilience and hope. The public rallied behind him, inspired by his quiet strength and determination. He visited the neighborhood where he'd grown up, speaking to young kids about courage, knowledge, and fighting against injustice. "I want you to know," he told them, "that where you start doesn't define where you'll go, and kindness can be the most powerful weapon you have." In the quiet moments, Elijah thought of his mother, the lessons she'd taught him, the love that had carried him through the darkest days. Now, armed with opportunity and purpose, he was ready to build a future where no one would ever be judged by the color of their skin or the clothes they wore. Because true justice wasn't just about punishment, it was about creating a world where everyone had a chance to shine. 5 years later, the fluorescent lights of Chicago General Hospital flickered softly in the early morning as Dr. Elijah Jones made his way down the bustling emergency room corridor. The once homeless teenager was now a 20-year-old resident physician, specializing in emergency medicine, the same field his mother had dreamed he would pursue. His white coat was crisp, his steps steady, and his eyes held the quiet confidence born of hard-earned experience. The head nurse approached him, urgency in her voice. "Dr. Jones, we have an obstetric emergency coming in. Twin labor complications." Elijah's heart quickened, but his face remained calm. This was the moment he had prepared for. The elevator doors opened, and Rebecca Langford was wheeled inside, her pale face showing the strain of premature labor. Beside her, two lively 5-year-olds clung to the nurse's hand, their bright eyes lighting up when they saw Elijah. "Uncle Elijah!" they shouted in unison, racing toward him with laughter and hugs. Rebecca smiled weakly, gratitude filling her eyes. "You saved my life twice, first at the mall, and now you're here again." Elijah knelt down to greet the children. "Henry wants to be a pediatrician like me, and Emma dreams of being a nurse." The hospital buzzed around them, but in that small circle, time slowed. Meanwhile, far away behind prison walls, Martha Aldridge was serving a 15-year sentence. Her empire had crumbled, exposed as a web of lies, greed, and hatred. The documentaries airing nationwide revealed her crimes and her racist attempt to sabotage Rebecca. Elijah's mentor, Elliot Cross, visited him regularly, often remarking, "Your story changed the way I see justice. It's not just about punishment. It's about giving people a chance to rise." One evening, as Elijah reviewed patient charts, a letter arrived. Handwritten, worn but sincere. It was from Martha, from behind bars. "Dr. Jones," it read, "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but you've shown me the true meaning of strength and wealth. It's not what we have, it's what we give." Elijah folded the letter carefully, placing it in a drawer alongside his mother's nursing certificate. Forgiveness wasn't easy, but it wasn't about her. It was about building something greater than pain and hate. That day, Elijah walked through the hospital halls with a renewed purpose, knowing that his journey, from rain-soaked streets to healing hands, was far from over. Because true greatness is not measured by where you start, but by how you rise.